That's not supposed to happen. Can you believe? Sorry about that, guys. My software is doing funny stuff. Can you believe it is almost the end of March? It's March 23rd, 1:01 p.m. here on the west coast of the United States. It is not raining today, thank God, and it is nice and sunny. I was just actually outside. I just stood there under the sun for about 5 minutes. It's like I need some vitamin D. I have a good friend. We're gonna have a fun conversation. This was a conversation that was supposed to happen Tuesday. Then it was like, let's do it next Tuesday. And then about 20 minutes ago, I was like, wait, why don't I just text him and see if he's available? And he said he is. So, Tyson James, how are you doing, brother?
What's up, man? My brother from another mother.
That's right.
How
Look at
you
that
doing?
beard, dude. That is glorious. As
You got a little
always.
more gray in it now,
That's
yeah?
okay.
These kids, oh man.
So, yeah, children will do that to you. And you just had one. You got a brand new one at home, huh?
Yes, sir. A
So,
little boy born February 7th.
okay, how's that? Are you guys going through the typical kind of routine of sleepless nights?
Yeah,
Or
he's kind of gone back and forth. Some nights he'll sleep for like 30 minutes at a time. Other nights, though, he's given us some nights where he slept like 5, 6 hours straight. So he's been pretty considerate so
that's
far.
like hibernation, man. That's good.
Oh.
That is very, very good. So Tyson, I wanted to have you on, and I've had you on before. And when you were on, man, you were probably one of the first guests I had on when we started doing interviews.
I must not
Oh,
have been a very good guest. You haven't had me on since.
oh, man, it's one of the weird things with this is I always know there are people I can rely on and count on to go back to, but I'm like, let me go through the people um, that essentially are harder to get, and then I'll recycle through. That's partly why. But
Yeah, that's me.
um,
I'm always lingering, always there.
you're always reliable. Is the way I was thinking about it. Um,
I'm I'm the trespasser.
dude, you were the eighth. You were the eighth guest I had on.
Oh,
That's very early on. So now a lot has happened, and there's a lot of the channel's grown a little bit, which is great. So we're gonna give a little breakdown of what you do, and then this new venture you started, and we'll talk about kind of practical aspects of like professional apologetics, what the apologetics landscape looks like now as opposed to what it did 5, 10 years ago. Those things have
mm.
changed. So just a back and forth. And if folks have questions that they want to throw our way, we'll take those questions. So
Awesome.
so tell us
Well, yeah,
what you
thanks
do.
again for having me on, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man, anytime.
such short notice, but no, we just got back from homeschool co-op, so it was good timing. Um,
Nice.
yeah, so Uh, yeah, as far as what I'm doing now, so the last time I was on, I was still working for Reasonable Faith. I'm the global chapters director. So we have local groups of Reasonable Faith that carry out the mission of Reasonable Faith at the local level all around the world. I think we're up to like almost 240 chapters in like 40 different countries. So it's just amazing what God has done growing these chapters. They're springing up all over the place. And I have the privilege to help these chapters start in new places and also help the ones that do currently exist, thrive and try and bring people to them so that they can share apologetics and solid theology and philosophy. I'm also the director of translations and transcriptions for Reasonable Faith. So basically anything that Dr. Craig puts out as far as articles and podcasts and videos and things like that. We try to get that in as many languages as possible. We have dozens of languages, translations on our website. So that's just
Yep.
a wonderful ministry that Reasonable Faith has seen the benefit of. And so they put a lot of money towards, let's get a lot of translations out.
and we got three
Hopefully, we'll have
articles.
more.
We got three articles in Armenian, and then we'll get it. We'll get it. We'll get on that.
Yeah, we need more for sure.
Yes, we do, and we've
Um,
seen the benefits of that.
yeah. So I've also recently started doing YouTube admin stuff for Reasonable Faith. So all of our YouTube channels, I'm one of the admins that'll go on there and answer questions, direct
I
people to
don't want to even know
resources.
what that's like. I don't even
Oh,
like. Oh man.
I mean, it's a good thing I've got thick skin, right? No, I was in the military. I can handle it.
I don't want to see those comments, man, because I see my comments and I'm like, right, but I don't want to see those.
Yeah, most of the comments are pretty innocuous. You get some people on there that are a little belligerent, but I largely ignore those. But one of the things that we really wanted to do was open up the comment section. For years, Reasonable Faith didn't open up the
Yes.
comment section because it was so toxic. And then we started opening up the comment section, and people were just thrilled because now they could have conversations about the videos right there in the comment section. So we decided to put a little more effort into monitoring those and making sure that the conversations stayed civil and things were going okay. So it's been great so far. I really
It's
enjoyed the
good.
interaction, and I think people have really enjoyed being able to have those conversations.
That is very good.
Um,
So
yeah,
you're okay. So
did you?
a lot of people just think Reasonable Faith, and then they think William and Craig. But there's a lot more people involved in Reasonable Faith.
Yes.
Reasonable Faith, it could very well be put, is here to stay. It's a ministry that is beyond Dr. Craig. It's a ministry that you just said 240 countries, dude. Sorry, 240 chapters, 40 countries.
240. Yeah.
That's all across the
Six
states.
continents.
Okay, so it is fair to say
We're working
global.
on the seventh continent. I mean, if you have any connections in Antarctica, we still need a chapter in Antarctica.
Hey, there's three guys there.
Hey, they need the gospel, bro.
Amen. All day. But 240 chapters, 40 countries, 6 continents. Um, what does that look like, man? What does that look like on the day-to-day for you?
Ooh, it's a lot of like answering emails and Facebook messages and like, you know, just different challenges for each chapter, right? You've got some chapters who are meeting out of homes. They're meeting with a handful of people. They want to know how to grow or what direction to take, or maybe they're meeting in a church and they're not getting a lot of support from their pastoral staff.
Mm,
So how do we overcome that apathy among the leadership so that the people in the congregation are getting fed the advanced training that we have? We want to be an asset to the church, and a lot of the times we're viewed with apprehension because the pastors, they don't have training in apologetics. And so it's strange to them. They don't know if they can control it or even how to analyze whether or not what we're saying is, orthodox a lot of
yeah.
the times. So, we're trying to help the church as a benefit, as tools, as people who make disciples, but at the same time, we have to overcome a lot of apprehension because there's not a lot of pastors that have the training
But
that we
Tyson,
have.
it's not like Reasonable Faith has a statement of faith that is so narrow where like it's like, oh, you, for example, right, like you have to be a Molinist to
Oh,
be a
no.
chapter director. Like that's just you
No,
can
yeah,
you can come from any theological background.
yeah, and Dr. Craig's very clear about this. He's like, the whole ministry, we're focused on mere Christianity, right? The basic fundamental truths that all Christians agree on, that is, the historical Orthodox Christianity. Obviously, Dr. Craig, on certain secondary positions, he differs very widely from
Yeah.
even evangelical brothers. But on the basics, we want to be very unified. And so our chapter directors, I mean, are so diverse. Like we have men and women. We have Protestants, Catholics, Orthodox, Baptists, Wesley, our Methodists, Presbyterians, you name it, basically, we've got a
Mm.
chapter director. So yeah, we have discussions internally about various secondary doctrines, but we're basically all really committed to the mission of reasonable faith and getting the core gospel out there and using these tools of philosophy and apologetics to overcome obstacles that people have. And it's really great to have such a diverse team.
How'd you jump into this? Like,
How did I
it's
jump in?
yeah, it's a weird job to have, right? It's like
It's so
it's like
providential, dude.
yeah, you're not like someone's growing up and it's like, hey, what do you want to do? I want to be the chapters director, the global chapters director for Reasonable Faith. Is like,
No,
tell us a little about
here's
that.
the story, man, and it's such a God thing. I got to take you back to when I was in the military. I was a linguist. I was an Arabic linguist. Like, they sent me to language school. I had to learn Arabic, and I was working in Intel. And I got to the end of my enlistment, and I was looking at my options. I could have had a really good career in the military, but God was just pushing me. I was having these conversations just providentially, people questioning my faith. And so it drove me to study the arguments and evidence for the truth of
You were
Christianity.
already a Christian in the military.
I was already a Christian, but I grew up Southern Baptist. Like, all of the churches that I went to, they taught you what to believe, not why you should believe it. So I didn't know how to defend my faith. And then I started getting questions, and suddenly I'm having to investigate. Well, is what I believe true? And so I went through this period of intense investigation while I was in the military, came out the other side. My beliefs weren't 100% the same. Like, I went through, a lot of modification, but I was still a Christian. And at the end of my enlistment, I thought, Lord, what do you want me to do? And it just seemed very obvious that he wanted me to get out of the military, pursue education somehow in religious studies or something of that nature, and to be an ambassador for Christ on a more permanent and full time level. So I got out. I got a bachelor's degree in religious studies and a master's degree in Christian apologetics from Biola University. Um, we moved to Monterey, California, because my wife was still in the military as a linguist.
You
So
guys,
we
you guys
went
met
out.
in the military. You and your wife met in
Yeah,
the military.
yeah, and actually, that's so another side note. She was one of those people that was questioning me. She was not a Christian when we first met. So she was
Hey,
questioning me and was like, why do you believe that the Bible is true? Why do you believe that God exists? How do you know this and that? And so she was one of the people that drove me to apologetics. And so later on, we were having these conversations. She comes up to me. She's like, how do I know if I'm a Christian? And I was like, whoa, are you serious right now? Like, that's awesome. So
that's really
she
cool.
credits our conversations with bringing her to Christ. And
Wow.
so I like to tell people that's the classic case of flirt to convert, right? So
For our younger audience, that's something we're
yeah,
encouraging.
yeah.
But that's
Yeah, if you want to find an awesome life, go do
so
some
often,
evangelism.
so often we hear things like, "Have you ever argued someone into the kingdom?" or "Have you ever really persuaded someone into the kingdom?" Tyson's like, "Yes, my wife." So
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah, and
yeah,
plus you can go on
that's
Reasonable
cool.
Faith. We have a testimonials page where you can see hundreds of people who they're like, I wasn't a Christian. Then I heard the Kalam cosmological argument. I
Hmm,
decided to accept Christ. You're like, well, that's not really a specifically Christian argument, but cool. I
correct.
mean, whatever, gets you there, right? So, yeah,
Yeah,
you can definitely argue people into the kingdom.
that's right. So you guys moved to Monterey, and
Yeah. So then I started a Reasonable Faith chapter there just as a volunteer. I was meeting out of my home for a little bit, and then I got invited to teach at one of the largest churches in Monterey. Actually, this mug is from there, Shoreline Community Church.
hmm,
There you go. Um, and it was great. I taught weekly apologetics classes there for like 4 years. And then we moved to North Carolina. And as we were moving to North Carolina, I had like a couple part time jobs. I had to quit those. And then my wife and I had just started talking about what I was going to do for work, right? We were going to move to North Carolina. I was like, and we had our new baby, our daughter had just been born. So we were like, am I going to get a job outside of the home? Am I going to try and find something where I can work from home? Are we going to have to put her in daycare? What are we going to do? No sooner had we started that conversation when the executive director of Reasonable Faith, Michael Lapine, he calls me up and he's like, hey, our chapters director, guy over all of our chapters, he's stepping down in like 2 weeks, and he dropped your name as a possible replacement for him. Is that something you'd be interested in?
They're like, sign me up.
And I was like, let me think. Okay.
Yeah, right on the spot.
I mean, it was just like God was just throwing it in my lap, like really.
Hmm.
So that was back in 2017. I've been on staff with Reasonable Faith since then.
So cool. Let's move on to this new venture that you're on. Tell us a little, because it's interesting. You don't hear. I mean, you're in the Christian space. I'm in the Christian space. We get to interact and hear quite a bit of folks. And when I saw you post about it on Facebook, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I like that. I'll tell you why, because there's a way I'm going about my apologetics ministry beyond YouTube stuff. And whatever, we'll talk about that. But go ahead, lead us into like why you, what it is, and then why you even thought it was a good idea to do this.
Okay, so I've never shared this publicly, so you're getting an exclusive.
Oh man, there we are, guys.
Yeah.
There we are,
Hey.
exclusive. Yeah.
So actually, I did not intend in the beginning to start any big consulting business. The whole reason I started an LLC was for tax benefits. So my wife and I, we go in to get our taxes done by an accountant, and he says, it looks like you're self-employed, like you're spending way too much money on self-employment taxes. And I said,
Mm.
oh, really? He's like, yeah, what you should do is set up an LLC, file as an S corp, and you can save on taxes that way. I was like, okay, let's do that. So we filed for this LLC, and as I'm coming, like he said, you have to come up with a name for your LLC. And I'm thinking of names, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? So I came up with Sound Faith Consulting. And as I was thinking about it, as I was repeating that name to myself, I was like, I'm doing this work for Reasonable Faith. I wonder if there's other people, if there's other ministries that could use some type of, the skills that I've acquired, over the years.
Mm.
And, just the connections that I've made in the apologetics community and philosophy community, I think those are valuable. So let me just see if, there's some other people that could benefit from that. So I opened it up and I said, hey, I'm open for business. Basically, I, started getting, logos and everything, and said, I'm offering these services. And it was like immediately several people wanted to hire me. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I did not expect that. So here I am, less than a year later. Like I opened the company in April of last year. It's less than a year later, and I'm already having to bring on a business partner and hire employees because we have just too much business. Like
That's
I've got the new
always
baby.
that's always a good thing, right? Hey, I started a business. Now we have too much of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's been
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on, because you're lagging quite a bit. Hang on.
oh,
So you said it's been, and then you lagged. So let's repeat that.
okay. So I mean, I was just saying it's been wild. Just so many people coming to us and saying we need what you're offering, because there's nobody else really doing what you're doing.
So okay, tell
So
us what it is. So what are you
yeah,
guys actually doing?
yeah. So we're a consulting agency, and we offer 4 main services. So number one is consulting in philosophy, theology, and apologetics. So basically, if there's a ministry that specializes in those fields and they want some feedback on whether or not maybe an article is well argued, like they have an argument that needs to be tightened up a little bit, they'll come to us and say, hey, like, can you take a look at this? We'll do stuff like that. We also do literary agency. So I have several authors that I've signed who I represent as a literary agent. And basically that involves them bringing me a manuscript and me looking through it and helping them with revisions and changes like that. And then sending proposals to publishers so that they can get picked up and we can get the rights sold and that they can be published with publishers. We also offer public relations consulting. So helping ministries formulate their message, the way that they present themselves to the public, and then also getting that message out there. So helping them
That's like
figure
super
out
needed with academics.
Yes, yes. One of our clients is Houston Christian University, and one of the things that David Baggett said to me was, we specialize, talking about academics, he said, we specialize in lame. So
he's right.
So,
Because man, so often, right? Like I've obviously read books, articles, or like even like seen presentations, even amongst Christians, like at ETS. You see like this amazing presentation and you're like, wow, this is so good. I wish everybody had access to this information. But the person given the presentation does not care, even I would say a lot of the times, about like the public persona, putting it out into the public, even like, hey, sit down and record a video. I remember actually talking about this with Dr. Gary Habermas. And I was like, do you understand how much information there is of you on the internet? And he was just like, yeah, people tell me. And I was like, just do what Bill Craig does. Like, just like get like 4 people just to like consolidate all your stuff because it's so much. Dr. Gary Habermas has free books on his website. You can literally just download.
Yeah.
He's like written or they're out of copyright or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I'll just give this out for free. He's that kind of a guy. Like, he's just like, oh, that's really nice. And I was like, literally, you search your name and it's lots and lots of stuff. You've done a lot of stuff over the years. And you're just like, yeah, it's really nice. I'm working on this really, really big book.
Yeah. So that was one of the reasons, we got into this sort of thing was because we want to take some of that workload that distracts academics
Correct.
from what they need to be doing. What does an academic need to be focusing on? Lecturing, research, writing, those types of things. They don't need to be like running their own social media pages, right?
Editing YouTube videos. Editing TikTok videos and YouTube shorts takes a long time, guys. It takes a long time.
So there are a couple other guys that are doing this sort of thing out there. But there's just such a need for it that there's plenty of room for more. So really taking the burden off a lot of these academics and then also promoting them. So we also have a talent management service that we provide. We've signed on several speakers, and what we're going to be doing for them is making phone calls, getting them speaking engagements, negotiating their speaker fees, figuring out logistics for them, where they're going to stay, how they're going to get there, and things like that, so they don't have to worry about those things. And then we take a percentage of all of those fees, but then they don't have to worry about it. So that's another service that we're offering.
That is really cool. That's a service I need. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, I've got a contract for you already made up. I'll send it your way.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting because even like in the last couple of months, locally, I've done some speaking engagements and stuff, and there are things that I would just rather not do. It's like, sure, like I'll come, and it's close enough people where we can have those conversations, but you could. if there's a lot of attention coming your way. I was actually having a conversation with someone who manages a lot of like pretty decently sized YouTube kind of folks, and the invitations that they get, like it takes a lot of work. Like if you're doing it alone, it's virtually impossible, I would say. If YouTube becomes this like avenue that people discover about you, they go, oh yeah, we'd like so on, so and so to come and speak at our church. It's like cool, but that means a bunch of stuff, and that's where you guys come in. That's really cool, man. I'm really happy that you guys not only are doing that, but are also like you recognized, hey, this is a space where, and this is why I asked you when we were off air. I said, is it fair to call it a ministry?
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about the business aspect, but by definition, let me just get on the soapbox a little here. What is a ministry by definition, or what is a minister by definition? What is a person who serves? A ministry is a service. We call politicians, or at least not in America, but many places in the world will call politicians ministers. That's because the idea is that they're serving the public. I have a view of Genesis, of God employing work, essentially, or employing Adam to work the garden. That's his ministry. And all jobs, in my mind, unless they're morally, obviously off limits, all jobs are ministries. The shoemaker is ministering to humanity by making shoes so our feet are protected and we don't hurt ourselves. And that, again, maybe we have to narrow of a definition, but you guys are literally serving folks who are serving the body of Christ.
Yeah.
And that's your heart.
Yeah. And I hope people see it that way. So I just wanted to read our mission statement because I think it says where we are grounded. Our mission statement, you can read this on the website. It says, our mission is to glorify God by building the fields of Christian philosophy, theology, and apologetics through Christian consulting, talent management, literary representation, and public relations consulting. So
I really like that literary thing, by the way. Like I like all of it, but the first one I didn't know about in regards to that. Like, it's like, hey, I got a really good idea, I think, and here's a paper I've written on it. I want you guys to look over this and see if there's any.
Before I put it out there for the world to see.
Yeah, because I have a paper like that, and I've been afraid to present it. But there is a paper I have. I'm like, gosh, I present this. I'll tell you why. Actually, it has to do with your boss. I was at ETS. I was at ETS. No, he's super gracious. But so we're at ETS, and I saw this guy was presenting a paper on logic, but doing it like somehow correlated and related to the Euthyphro. You there? Oh, man. Let's see, guys. Hang on. We'll have Tyson call back. I don't want to finish that thought because I want to get his reaction on that. There we are. What is going on here? Tyson, you there? Technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. That's okay. We're back. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So
So the last thing I heard you say was you were sitting in on a talk on the Euthyphro dilemma and logic. I
Yeah.
think I actually sat in on that one.
Okay. So I think it was the guy's like first time presenting at a conference.
Yeah.
PhD student, and Dr. Craig is Dr. Craig is in there. It's like a room of like 15, 20. And again, and I remember this guy quoted Craig in the paper, and I think he disagreed, if I'm not mistaken. And like Craig is sitting in the front row, and I'm like, dude. And so he finishes his paper. He gives his talk, and he goes, any questions? And the first person to raise his hand is Dr. Craig. And I was like, oh man, I'm just like really scared for this guy, because it's you're disagreeing, because for those who aren't aware, like at conferences, there have been times where people have disagreed with someone, and that person was in the audience, who raised their hand and said, that's not what I meant. You misrepresented me. And it's like, that's the worst thing you want to hear, because you do not want that, right? And I was like, oh man, here it comes. But Dr. Craig was very gracious and actually told him that his paper was really good and he made good points, and very encouraging to him. But oh man, yeah. So it's always a fear, right? Like to get up and you present. It's that and mispronouncing people's names that might actually be sitting there. You always want to. I was told that you always want to run these things, like ask people how they want their names to be pronounced, or even send them the paper before you ever present it. Say, hey, am I representing you well in here? And then you get a response. So
No.
that's cool that you guys do that. And then if anybody wants to get published, ladies and gentlemen, reach out to Mr. Tyson James right here. They'll do the work. They'll go through your manuscript. They'll do all the red pen stuff. They'll reply it and then find you someone to go there with. Tell us how the apologetics world has changed, because so let me just start. This is way before maybe our time, but we had folks that were doing apologetics and doing it well at the level that they were doing it at. So folks like Josh McDowell,
Yeah.
folks like Walter Martin, right? And then Norm Geisler, like, and then this took like, and then it became academic with a certain generation.
Yeah.
Okay. And then those individuals taught students and ended up being places like Richard Swinburne, like Dr. Craig, who had a mass influence on the church. And then folks started saying, wow, like I can go get a degree in this, because universities started developing programs that geared towards this. I mean, where I went, Talbot, they just celebrated their, 30th year? 40th year, I think. 30th year, not 40th year. 30th year. And I remember one of the professors telling me, oh, we wanted to call it just a philosophy department. And then there was pushback by some folks, because philosophy was like a scary title. So philosophy of religion and ethics became the title, where it's just become normal part of kind of the Christian culture to speak about these things, to universities to have programs like that, or even to have like you can get a master's degree in apologetics.
Yeah.
These things were unheard of. What are the amazing things you've seen about this? Maybe the professionalization, if that's a word, of this, and then where you think kind of maybe some advice to younger folks who are thinking about going in these directions.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we have to give credit, huge amount of credit to Dr. Craig for popularizing apologetics and bringing it to where it is today. Him and a lot of the other debaters out there, and not just the debaters, but the people who were doing public speaking and getting large venues and bringing apologetics to the larger populations. So it was really with those folks that apologetics became more of a mainstream thing. Before that, it was mainly confined to, like you said, Josh McDowell, Walter Martin, like the, defensive apologetics, even of, like you would find in Mere Christianity, where you're just
Hmm.
basically clearing up misunderstandings about Christian doctrine and things like that. But really, with the advent of debates and more positive argumentation, suddenly people were like, oh, we can go on the offensive with this. We have tools in our kit to make a more forceful case for the truth of Christianity, not just playing defense and answering objections when they come our way.
Hmm.
And then, like you said, the development of apologetics programs. Now there are several really excellent programs all across the U.S., even being created on other continents around the world. So that was really unheard of, like you said, prior to some of these top level philosophers bringing apologetics down to the popular level. Um, from what I've seen too, is when I first started with Reasonable Faith, each chapter director was basically an island. Like they gave you your certification
Hmm.
and you would go and meet with people and create your own materials, and there wasn't a whole lot of, like follow up. It was like, here, God bless you, now go.
We're with you.
Yeah. um, and that was just, the limitation of time and resources to devote to managing or taking care of these chapters. Now, it's much more of a collaborative effort. We're always shooting ideas back and forth. We're always sharing information. We share lecture notes and handouts and outlines and PowerPoints and graphics and things like that. So we're living in a time when we're benefiting from each other much more than in the past. It's much more of a community, much more of a network than it was before. And that's just reduced the load on everyone. I can't tell you how many people got burned out because for every lesson that they taught, they had to create all of their own materials. Like, with video editing, like it's a huge time suck. So if you have other people that are helping you out, giving you
Yeah.
things that all you have to do is edit, suddenly your burden's lighter, right? And that's just one of the things that we've seen change over the years. And not just within our ministry, but now we're also sharing some resources with other ministries. Like I've been in collaboration with several other large apologetics ministries where we've all kind of at the same time said, this is the time when we need to collaborate. Instead of being our own islands, let's share our resources. Let's figure out how to help each other, because the rising tide lifts all boats, right? We all want to help each other in this endeavor that we're all in together.
Um, in regards to, I want to ask a question, but I got to formulate it properly. I think Christian apologetics has actually improved atheist arguments.
Oh yeah.
Because it's sort of like we've pushed each other. It's like two athletes who push each other to do better. And it was like atheists were presenting arguments, and I'm not talking about antiquity, right? Like let's just talk the last 100 years, whatever. Like a Bertrand Russell, and you get like atheists that are producing arguments, and then you get these Christians who come up and they're like, "Well, hang on here, right? Like let's just say, whatever, your G.K. Chesterton, your C.S. Lewis, and then you get some other folks, and then in the early 2000s, this boom of these new atheists. I did a response to the Pierce Morgan and Richard Dawkins interview yesterday, which was really fun because I think Dawkins has actually changed quite a bit as he's gotten older. But and then you got Christians who were writing books and responding, right? Like the God Delusion. There's a response to there's a book written called The Dawkins Delusion, and even now I've realized one of the things I've seen is that not only have Christians do they have better access to better arguments and are more articulate in their argumentation because there's so much access to good info, whether that's on YouTube or like even in just literature, like Dr. Craig. I don't know how many articles has he, that Q&A thing he does. How many, what's the number it's on?
Question of the week articles,
Yeah.
we're up over 800.
Okay. So just question of the week, he's written 800 articles, just question of the week. That's nuts. I wish I could write like that, but um, it's just insane.
One a
Man.
week.
No, it's insane. It's like it's so. He's so good at it. He's just really he's gifted in that area, and so it's like people have access to that.
Yeah.
That's for everyone, right? That's not just for the people who've written that article. Anybody can go on the website and just search any question. They're gonna most likely come across something he's written on. And if you don't submit that question, you'll get a response.
Yeah.
And then atheists respond to that and they get better, right?
Yeah.
In the midst of that, because we do live in a very divided, kind of toxic. I see like TikTok as the most toxic place on the internet. But because you read a lot of comments, and we were kind of joking earlier about comments on YouTube videos. Are you actually seeing better arguments from the atheist side, both on the academic level, but also just on a popular level? Because Christians have presented better arguments, like as the response.
I would say maybe 1 out of every 200 or 300 YouTube commenters has insightful things to say, things that go deeper than most people usually do. They're clearly familiar with the literature and things like that. So they're offering good, solid questions and objections. But again, that's in YouTube comments. So you're going to get, just a huge number of people who have never studied these things in depth and they don't know what they're talking about. And so, yeah, I don't know how to gauge whether or not that's an improvement or not, but definitely in the academic literature, the atheists are getting much more sophisticated. And you were talking about the rise of the new atheists. Well, pretty much everybody knows that the new atheists were not really they weren't presenting new arguments, right? Their arguments were really old and really bad, and they were getting torn apart for it. But it was that criticism that came from really sophisticated Christians that drove a lot of philosophers who were agnostic or leaning atheists to turn their attention towards developing better arguments for atheism, for skepticism, or just critiquing Christianity and theism in general. So now we have really, really sophisticated, very high level atheist philosophers putting out really incredible work that needs to be taken seriously, that needs to be read and studied and interacted with. We do ourselves a disservice if we just ignore them or don't treat them as if they're serious works. So, like you said, that's guys like Graham Oppie, Alex Malpass, that level of guys.
And they're a lot better in regards to their relational kind of awareness is what I would say. Like they're nicer.
Yes.
And there's actually respect towards the opponents. They don't treat the opponents like, oh, you're one of these really dumb religious people who doesn't know what they're talking. Like Graham Oppie is smart, man. And he's a philosopher of religion and he's really, really good at it. Yeah. But again, he interacts with Christians in a very gracious, in a very honorable fashion, which is where we all want to see these conversations be.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we say this, there's a lot of Christians. I was thinking atheist channels, and then sometimes I'll go and then read the comment section and I'll see Christians saying stuff and I'm like, oh man, just don't. It's bad. Right. You get both of those where Christians who've never looked at atheist arguments, they've never studied it, thinking that, whatever, Satan is making you say this or something, some form of a comment like that. And it's no, don't do that. What would be your kind of advice for somebody who is interested in not only in apologetics, but professional apologetics? Because it's a lot, by the way, I should say it's a lot more competitive. Christians work together pretty well, and they support one another. That's been my experience.
Yeah.
But also it 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 has gotten a lot more competitive. You know, and you do this, and I'm kind of asking this because you book people for speaking engagements. It's like where in the past they might have reached out to 2, 3, 4, 8 people. They can reach out to like 30 off the top of my head. I can just sit there and like write down a list of people and go, here's what this like really top tier guy is going to cost you. And here's what Arthur is going to cost you. Like, pick where you want to go about that, because we do have like really, really high level academics, multiple PhDs to folks. Again, I just put myself in that category. Folks who aren't and haven't put in that. They don't have all these books, but they can show up and train a group of 50, 60, 80 people pretty well in regards to apologetics.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by competition.
Yeah. So that's a question that I get sometimes from the people that are looking into our talent management services. They're like, so, you know, what are the prospects of getting speaking engagements? Because, you know, you've got these other people, these other ministries, they're already, scheduling speaking engagements. We see them out there all the time. They're doing events every week. I'm like, you know, how there's only a few big apologetics ministries that seem to have, like these regular events. It seems like every month, right? Or every other week or something like that. How many places are they in at one time?
Correct. Yeah.
Usually, right? How many different places need the training that apologists have, from the most popular level to the most advanced level? Like every big metropolis area, every, even smaller areas all around the country, how often are they getting events or training conferences or seminars or things like that? So it's more competitive in the sense that there are more people getting into apologetics part-time or full-time, but there still isn't a saturation, not even close, of the market for apologists, because there aren't a lot of people like me who are actually doing the speaking engagement outreach and fee negotiation, logistics, all those things. There just aren't. So it's up to the people themselves a lot of the time to get those speaking engagements. And then you've got people trying to supplement their income with other jobs, so they're not able to dedicate 100% of their time to those things. We are trying to get people to the point where they can actually be full-time speakers, apologists, philosophers, things like that, because we're the ones trying to get them enough speaking engagement business so that they don't have to supplement their income with X, Y, and Z, right? And that's one of the taboos of apologetics and theology and philosophy is like, can we talk about business? Can we talk about the fact that you don't have to be poor and have to have 4 part-time jobs just to pursue this vocation, right?
One of the things a lot of people, it's so interesting because like the amount of time it would take to, people don't realize the amount of time it takes to prepare, say like a 45-minute talk on a subject. And even if you have the talk ready to go, you're keeping up, ideally, you're keeping up with the literature. You're constantly doing analysis to say, hey, maybe there's a newer argument that came as a counter argument to my argument that I'd like to address. Maybe that wasn't there 5 years ago, but it's a lot more noticeable or whatever like that. Or something might be really popular, but it's silly, right? And you want to address that. So you're constantly researching and re-editing. I just did, last week, I did a 2-day seminar for a church. And I gave a talk that I don't know how many times I've given. It's an initial talk I do to groups where the leader, the pastor or something says, the people here don't have much knowledge about apologetics. So like, you essentially need to convince them that this is even important. So I have this talk I've developed called an apologetic for apologetics. So I go through what apologetics is, the benefits you're going to get from apologetics, so on and so forth. I had to re-edit that, quite a bit of it, because you got to update it. But it takes a lot of work, and people don't realize 45-minute talk, it's not just 45 minutes of work. It's a lot more. But when you're dealing with ministries and your heart is generally just to serve God and God's people, it gets really weird talking about the business side of things.
Because we don't want to be seen as greedy, right? That's the opposite of what we want. And there are too many, bad actors out there who fleece congregations or fleece donors. They're not providing solid content. They're basically just getting rich off of godly people, and we don't want to be seen like that. But there is a place to have a serious conversation about the business aspect of these fields, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of philosophers and theologians and apologists have been taken advantage of over the years. They have training that took decades.
Correct.
Decades to get. And you think about any other field where you have decades worth of work and how much you're getting paid for that experience. And I guarantee you, the people in these fields, they're not getting paid commensurate to their experience. And not only that, but then, you've got issues with publishing. I posted about this not too long ago, but there's a very serious issue in Christian publishing where because these authors want to get their work out there, but traditional publishers don't want to take a chance on first-time authors or whatever, they will go with what's called a hybrid publisher or a vanity press, where they pay the publisher to get their work out. And what happens is these authors pay thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to get copies of their books out there, and then they get ghosted by their publishers. They don't get any help marketing. They don't really get any help with, like book reviews, things that they've actually paid for and things like that. And these are from quote unquote Christian publishers who make promises about what they're going to be providing for all of this money that these authors are giving them. And their contracts, I just read somebody's contract, and it basically says it doesn't matter what we're going to do. If you have a problem with it, you can't take at all, ever.
Sorry, you got to repeat that.
That's in the fine.
You said it doesn't matter.
I said I just read. Yeah, the contract basically, paraphrase says it doesn't matter what happens, no matter what, no matter if we don't deliver on our services or whatever, you cannot take us to court. You cannot sue us.
That's weird.
And that's in the fine print of this contract. And with a Christian publisher, you don't expect to have to address things like that. You don't expect them to hand you a contract with that kind of clause in it. But I'm here to tell people, just because a publisher has the word Christian in their name or their description does not mean that they're not willing to take advantage of you. And that's just the unfortunate reality.
Correct. Yeah. And so you just want to be wise and knowledgeable on these issues, because writing a book could potentially, if somebody has a manuscript, it could have been that they worked on that manuscript for 4, 5, 8 years.
Yeah.
And it's 8 years worth of blood, sweat, and tears. And,
absolutely.
And to not be, say, compensated for that, especially if the book ends up being like a really good book and like you want to be well compensated for this thing. I won't name the publisher or the book, but we were trying to get it translated into Armenian. And even the authors that we spoke to were like, we can't even get these guys to do anything. The authors were like, do it, we'd love it. The publisher was like, here's a list of demands. And the list of demands, given like the amount of people in the world that are Armenian speaking, I mean, that's generally a smaller kind of niche group, obviously, just didn't make any sense. Like
Yeah.
if you want, let's just say, right, and this isn't what they said, but let's just say if upfront you want payment for like 10,000 books to be printed and shipped, um, where is that money going to come? Like you need quite a bit of money to get any of that stuff done.
Yeah.
So yeah, it gets really complicated and it's necessary. What about for younger folks that want to come kind of, because again, we spoke about like different tiers. Like somebody can strive and say, yes, I do want to become this academician at this level, do these things, write the books and all that stuff. I'm assuming most people wouldn't want to do that. Or it just might not be their calling or gifting or something like that. But they could do anything in between there. Like, what would be some practical advice you might want to give them?
For younger people. So when I think of younger people, I think like junior high, high school.
Yeah, let's just say it's a 10th grader in high school. He's starting to think about, college and kind of where he's going to go with life.
Yeah. For anybody who is already at that age interested in apologetics, I would 100%, and who wants to go into apologetics, I would 100% suggest and advise going in and studying philosophy. There are apologetics degrees out there, but if you want to have an apologetics ministry, it's more useful to have formal education in philosophy. Um, because those are the issues that's the type of training, specialized training that you need to deal with Christian and non-Christian sources and to have a lot of credibility in the communities that you're going to be working in.
Hmm.
And to have credibility among your interlocutors. Like if you're going to be speaking with atheists, if you're going to, be attempting to do some outreach like that, or maybe have some debates or whatever, having a degree in apologetics just there's a negative connotation often that is associated with that. It's like you've the reputation is like you've gone into the discussion already with your mind made up and you're just in it to defend your position. You're not open to seeing the other side. So, there's nothing wrong with getting a degree in apologetics, but I'm just saying if you want to go into the work of apologetics, it's more useful to have a degree in philosophy.
Okay. So get your education. What about like being
Also,
involved? What about like being involved in ministry? Like, so the one that comes to my mind, obviously, reasonable faith because you're here, but like
yeah,
Ratio Christi,
yeah,
right? Like you can literally be on campuses studying your degrees and involved in doing these things, whether it's with reasonable faith or something like a Ratio Christi.
yes, there's so many options for this now. Reasonable faith, we don't have an age limit on who can be a chapter director. So anybody that can get through the certification process can be a chapter director regardless of their age. Ratio Christi, obviously on campus ministry, we need student and directors, right? They team up with faculty. So, definitely we need students to go that direction as well. Stand to Reason, they just opened up their
Correct.
chapters program. So they've got what's called outposts. That's more popular level content. So that's a really great way for younger people to get involved. There's so many good organizations out there where you can get involved. Also, go to a training. Ask around to your church or your parents to see if they will fund you to go to a training event like Summit Ministries. I don't know if you've heard of Summit
Yes.
Ministries, but they have excellent training events. Go on a Maven trip, right? Brett Kunkel and his ministry. Those are excellent ways to get your feet wet and get into apologetics practicing so that later on you'll be prepared to go into
Or at least you
the
know
ministry.
what you're getting yourself into.
Right, right, to test whether or not you want to get into it. Yeah.
Correct. Oh man, this is good stuff. Um, there. So let's talk digital kind of space.
Mm,
Partly because a portion of my stuff is digital. Um, Now we have a lot of really, really solid guys doing ministry. In regards to like well-known folks. Okay. So again, I'll just throw out some names. not just like Christian content creators. I'm talking people who are like directly involved in doing apologetics and giving reasons and stuff like that. So, so Red Pen Logic, for example,
Oh,
right? Like really good, fast, again, TikTok, but right? Really, really awesome stuff answering these questions that are coming up. Someone like a John McCrae, what do you mean?
oh,
Someone like Mike Winger, like these guys are really quick. And we've seen an explosion in these areas. But one of the things I've also realized is that there's so many people doing similar stuff that are really, really good at what they're doing, but not maybe like they don't have that sort of a platform,
yeah.
right? Like that, again, it takes work and time, obviously, to grow that. How do those people maybe take advantage of some of the stuff that bigger ministries are producing, like A Reasonable Faith? So like I can take, I'll give you an example. Like we worked with you guys, translated a video into Armenian, the entire video, internal writing, everything. That was a really fun project. And then it's like, there is a video now all in Armenian, right? So that was, we couldn't have done that just because all the graphics, everything was given to us by you guys. Like the video template, and it was like, okay, here's a puzzle, like put it together with
Yeah.
with the correct fonts and writing and all that stuff, and then the narration obviously being Armenian, and then that goes out there. Like that was just, I don't want to say it was simple, but it was reaching out, talking, or the translations we did with you guys. But can that be used, or can that be taken? Like somebody can reach out to you and say, hey, Dr. Craig has this really, really cool article he's written, whatever, question 531. And I like it, and I want to kind of maybe use that to develop a video. Is there a way people can do that kind of work?
Yeah, we're open to a lot of different partnerships like that. Like obviously, Dr. Craig is very concerned about quality control
Correct.
for his content, right? Because his content is the highest quality you could probably get in apologetics, and so we want to make sure that if people are using his content, that it stays high quality. So one of the things that we've done is for people who want to do translations and post those translations to their websites, we give them permission often to post like a 500 word excerpt of an article. And then the full article they give to us, and we post it on our translations page on our website. So that's a way where they can get content for their website and also direct people to full articles on our website as well. We have tons of partnerships like that, and there's just so much that we can do sharing resources. Like you said, we were able to hand over the video files for our animated videos, and you were able to adjust those into Armenian. We do that with tons of other languages as well. So the best thing is just if you have an idea, it can't hurt to ask, right? Reach out to us because we're always looking for people who are innovative and looking to share the content with the world. Like that's our goal. We want to share all of this information with the world. And that's why we lean heavily on volunteers coming to us and saying, I feel the urge, the push from God to get this stuff out there. Is there any way that I can help?
I
And
remember you
so,
not, this is not recent, it's fairly recent, I guess. But you posting about content being translated into, man, it was, I think it was a language from Pakistan, if I'm not mistaken.
oh, Urdu.
Urdu, right? Like
Yeah.
like there's a huge demand for it. It's like,
Yes.
who would have thought, right?
That whole situation is amazing because so Reasonable Faith only pays for a few languages to be translated, right? They only approve budget funds for certain languages
Mm-hmm.
because you just can't pay for all of the languages out there, and it doesn't make financial sense a lot of the times. Urdu was not one of those languages, but I had this guy, and he was all about, I'm ready to translate everything you got. Just let me go. Like if you can get me a little bit of funding, I can do this. And I said, all right, well, let me approach my, the company, let me approach the ministry and see if they will let me do some independent fundraising outside of, the board approved
Yeah.
budget or whatever. I will get the funds to fund this guy to do translations. So they said, okay, yeah, if you can raise the funds, we can, send the funds to him. So I did. I had several rounds of fundraising, and we were able to pay for almost all of the animated videos to be redone in Urdu, and a lot of shorter videos as well. And eventually, they did add Urdu to the list of languages
Nice.
that are now approved for budget funds. But it has been so amazing because I think we've been doing this for a couple of years now, maybe 2 years, 3 years, not even 3 years. I think 2 years,
Yeah.
and we're already seeing tens of millions of views
Because that
on
is a part of the world where there's a large populace who aren't connected to Christian kind of stuff.
99% Muslim, right? In Pakistan.
Yeah.
I think that's what the numbers are. And we're getting reports of people converting to Christianity. I've seen photos of people being baptized in Pakistan.
Amazing.
They're getting free copies of the gospel. They're being connected to churches there and Christians, and it's just amazing what the Lord is doing through this ministry of translation.
Well, get ready because you're going to get some emails from me because we are in the process of developing an Armenian-only website. We had our website and then we had those articles on our website.
Yeah.
And so we've bought the domain already, and we are developing that website. And then once that's done, we're going to be like, hey, Tyson, I want to translate this and this.
Let's go.
You're about to get it, man. My team's doing a really good job, man. My team in Armenia is doing a really good job. We just came out with like a 37. The video is 37 minutes. And it is essentially like a history of Jehovah's Witnesses and doctrines. And that's only part one. And one of the things that we're doing is we'll probably end up doing that in English as well. Like the original copy of the text, the script is in Armenian. But I had people come to me, they're like, hey, we want this in English. And so now I'm telling them to reverse translate it for me. I'm like, okay, I need this in English. But it's amazing because, again, like in Armenia, nobody's doing it, but he's written about what was it? It's probably like 60 something pages. I mean, we could technically like produce a little pamphlet out of that, which is the history of Jehovah's Witnesses, their doctrines, the Bible passages, the responses to it. And just to be able to do that with a very, very small team, very small budget is just really amazing to see.
Well, I'll tell you something. So I've been in conversation with some executives about the so-called AI singularity that is now upon us.
Yeah.
Let's dive into AI real quick. We've had online tools to help with productivity and efficiency, right? You've got your Google Suite, your Microsoft Suite, various tools that you have, video editing software, things like that. But the stuff they're coming out with now could turn a team like yours with just a handful of people and make you hyper productive.
Yeah.
Like, making 35, 40-minute videos, hour-long videos in just a few minutes based on a few prompts that you give it. Like, it's just mind-blowing the potential these things have.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested to see whether or not the apologetics community really taps into these things and keeps up and is able to implement them effectively.
So we'll see. It's funny because I was having a conversation 2 days ago with one of the guys on my board, and he was like, hey, I want to do short videos, but I want like an argument on like the deity of Jesus, but I want ChatGPT to write it, and then I want to edit it and then send it your way. I was like, cool, do it. So he sent me something yesterday. It's kind of like a shorter thing that where, at least you get like a skeleton, then you can edit and fill in the details and stuff like that. And all that's left is recording and editing, and then even that's being like, hey, AI, generate a I don't know, 8-minute video production or something. It's nuts because it's so scary. Like it's gonna, like a lot of people are gonna lose their jobs. Um,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it
But
could
I
be.
mean,
Yeah, you're right. It could be
so
utilized.
to follow up on that, um, you said a lot of people are going to lose their jobs, but at the same time, the apologetics community, the number of people involved in this ministry is small.
Correct.
We don't have enough apologists, right? Not enough people popularizing and getting out into actual churches and teaching these things. It's interesting that at the moment when the population is exploding and we need more and more workers, God seems to be providentially providing tools to make the people that are faithfully in these
Mm,
fields hyper productive.
yeah.
So even if he's not sending tons of people into these fields, he's using the people that are there in a very big way.
Yeah. It's really cool. Um, that's we're gonna see. We are in a, I don't know, industrial revolution 3.0, maybe. I don't know. I don't. Is
Maybe.
it, right, with the advent of the internet and all that, the direction this is going into. It's just what I wouldn't recommend people is if you don't know the arguments and then you have a computer generate something and you don't know how to edit that, just be very careful because like I had ChatGPT write up an argument on the resurrection, and I didn't think it did a good job. I read it
Yep.
and I was like, it's too weak. So there's a lot better stuff. So you should know kind of the direction you want to go into and the arguments that you have for that, because whatever it's producing it could have wrong information in there, and you never want to
Yes.
put out information or put out like it produces something. Say, let's just say the one we're working on the deity of Christ, and it's quoting Bible passages out of context. And if you don't have the skills to understand that that's out of context and you just put it out there, it becomes very problematic. So don't do that. Right? It's not for
Yeah.
just
Hire a
anybody can.
consultant.
Huh?
I said hire a consultant to double check it.
I love that. Yes. Yes, sir. Oh man. Okay. That's actually what we're gonna stop here at, and because I think that's, if you need a consulting agency, reach out to Sound Faith Consulting, Tyson. That's the face. It's always smiling, by the way. So that's the face. We appreciate the work that you're doing, Tyson. Let me say bye to, hang on the line. Let me say bye to everyone, and then we'll have a little chat. But I really appreciate it. Do you want to say anything before you go?
No, just thanks for having me on, man. Thanks. I love these conversations. For all the people out there who are watching, we need you to be involved, to participate. We need your talents and the skills that God gave you to participate in these ministries. And I'm just so glad that you, Arthur, have this ministry to reach out to them, to train them, to get them involved.
Thank you, man. And thanks for like super last minute saying yes. I appreciate that.
My
You're
pleasure.
super reliable. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for watching. And if you're watching the replay, or if you watched the replay up to this point, really appreciate it. You can share this out. And again, know that there are Christians who are in very innovative ways trying to get the gospel out, trying to produce the best possible stuff we can produce, not only to train and equip believers, but to actually have very good conversations and to reach out to unbelievers. So that's always there. If you guys need any help with that, you guys can reach out to me as well. That's info@apologiacenter.com. That's the email, or you can just go to apologiacenter.com, and then you can message us through there. We're going to revamp the website as well. When we come up with the Armenian website, we'll revamp our website. Thank you guys for being with us, and we will see you tomorrow for a live Q&A at 1. Take care and God bless.